Hey everybody, I'm going to help you out with Lesson 11's homework. And on this first one, it's asking us to plot the following points on the number line using decimal form. So we're going to start off with here on A, and it says 0.6, so that one's easy. You can just plot it on the line right here at 0.6. Now 5/10 in fraction form is the same as 0.5, so we're going to put that right here. 0.76 is the same as 7/10 and 600. So I'm going to go to 7/10. I'm going to count over 600s to put it right here. 79/100 would, well, 7/10 is the same thing as 70/100, and 8/10 is the same thing as 80/100. So it'd be between 0.7 and 0.8. So I'm going to go to 7/10 and count over 9 to get the 9/100. So I'm going to put it right there. 0.53 would be at 5/10 and count over 300, so 1, 2, 3, be about right there. And then 67/100 would be 6/10 and 700. So I'm going to go to 6/10, I'm going to count over 7, and I'm going to put it right here. Well, 6/10 is the same thing as 60/100, 7/10 is the same thing as 70/100, so I know it's going to be between here. I'm going to count over 7, and put it right here. Alright, on B we have 8 ones and 15/100, so all of these are in different forms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert them all to decimal form, that way they're easier to plot. So I'm going to start off with 8 ones and 15/100. Well, 8 ones and 15/100 is the same thing as 8.15. And if this is 8.1, which is, or I can look here and say 8 and 10/100 is the same thing as 8.1. and 8 and 20/100. So if I have 8 and 15/100, it's going to be in between those two right here at 15/100. So it's going to be right here. Next we have 832/100, which if I converted that into a mixed number would be 8 and 32/100. Which would be between 8.3 and 8.4, because that's 8 and 30/100, and 8.4 is 8 and 40/100. And so it'll be right here, 2 spaces over. I have 8 and 27/100, which will be between 8 and 20/100 and 8 and 30/100. So it would be 7 over from 8.2. And then I have 82/10. Well, 82/10, let's figure out what that would be as a mixed number. So 82/10, well, 10/10 is a whole, so that should be the same thing as 8 and 2/10. Well, 8 and 2/10 is the same thing as 8.2, so we're going to put that right here on the number line. And then 8.1 should be really easy to plot, because there's just 8.1. Okay, next. On C, we're going to do the same thing again, just with a different set of numbers. We have 13 and 12/100. Well, 13.1 is the same thing as 13 and 10/100, or 13 and 1/10. Excuse me. So it's going to be 2 spaces over from 13.1, because 13.2 is 13 and 20/100. 13.1 is 13 and 10/100. So I'm going to count over, so that'll be 13 and 11/100, 13 and 12/100 right here. Okay, next is 130/10, which if I change that into a mixed number, I get 13 even, because I could get 13 groups of 10/10 out of that. So it's just going to go here at 13.0. Same thing as 13 wholes. The next one is 13 ones and 3/10 would be the same thing as 13.3, so I'm going to put that down here. Then we have 13.21, which is 2/10 and 1/100, so it's going to be 1 space past 13.2. And then we have 13 and 3/100, which isn't even 13 and 1/10 yet. It'll just be 3 spaces past the regular 13 at the front. Okay, let's move on to the next one. These, oh, hold on. These are going to ask us to put the numbers in order from greatest to least. And the easiest way to do that, because these are all in different forms, is to change each one of them to decimal form before we get started, and then comparing them. So on A, 4.03 is already in decimal form, so we're going to leave it alone. And then we have 4 ones and 33 hundredths. Well, 4 ones and 33 hundredths would be the same thing as 4.33. And then we have 34 hundredths, which is the same thing as 0.34. Then we have 4 and 43 hundredths, would be 4.43. And then we have 430 hundredths, which is same thing as 4 wholes, and 30 hundredths or 3 tenths would be 4.30 or 4.3. Now they're a lot easier to compare because we can compare them by whole numbers and tenths and then down to the hundredths. Well, the greatest one would be 4.43 because it is 4 wholes and 4 tenths, and that's the most tenths out of any of them. So that's the greatest. The next one would be 4.33 because it has 3 tenths and 3 hundredths. So I would write 4.43 is greater than 4.33. Next would be 4.3 because it has 3 tenths but no hundredths. That's what makes it a little bit less than 4.33. I'm sorry, 4.31, I forgot about that one, would come next because it has only 1 hundredth, and then 4.3 would be next. Then we'd have 4.03 because that's no tenths and 3 hundredths. And the very smallest one would be 0.34 because it doesn't even have any holes. Okay, on part B, I have lots of different numbers, and we're going to change them all into decimal form to make them easier to compare. So 17 and 5 tenths would be 17.5. Then we have 17.55. Then we have 157 tenths, which as a decimal would be 15.7. Because I could pull out 15 groups of 10 tenths and then have 7 tenths left over. 17 ones and 5 hundredths would be 17.05. Then we have 15.71, and then the last one is 15.75 because it is 75 hundredths. Okay, when I put those in order, we're going to start off with 17.5 because it has the largest number of holes, or 5 because it has the largest number of holes, and tenths, and then it has even some hundredths, so it'd be 17.55. Then we'll have 17.5 because it has 5 tenths, but it didn't have any hundredths, so it's going to be a little bit less than 17.55. Then we're going to have 17.05 because it has no tenths and 5 hundredths, but it's still bigger than all the 15s because it has more holes. Now we're going to move on to 15.75 because it has 7 tenths and 5 hundredths. Next would be 15.71 because it just has a little bit less hundredths. And then very last would be 15.7. Alright, on part C, we're going to do the same thing again, change all of those in the decimal form, and then put which one is greater. If you want to pause here and try it on your own before I get started and then play, that would be good practice. Okay, part C says 8 ones and 19 hundredths, so I'm going to change that to 8.19. 9 and 8 tenths would be the same as 9.8. 81 is just 81. Then we have 809 hundredths, which would be 8.09, because I could pull out 8 groups of 100 hundredths with 9 hundredths left over. Then we have 8.9 right next to it. And then we have 8.1 for 8 1/10. Obviously, out of all of these, 81 is going to be the biggest because it has 81 holes. Doesn't matter how many tenths or hundredths, it has the most holes. So we're going to start off with 81. I'm going to cross these out as we go. So 81 is greater than, the next biggest would be 9.8 because it has the next biggest amount of holes. There's nothing else with 9. And now everything left only has 8 holes. So next would be 8.9 because it has the most tenths. Then we'd have 8.19 because it has, although there's another one that has 1/10, this one has 900ths as well. So it'd be 8.19. Then 8.1 because it still has 1/10. And then very last, 8.09. Okay, on these last two, you're going to be using the stuff from the word problem to compare the numbers to answer the question. So on number 3, it says, in a paper airplane contest, Matt's airplane flew 9.14 meters, Jenna's flew 9 4/10 meters, Ben's flew 904 hundredths meters, and Leah's airplane flew 9.1 meters. Whose airplane flew the furthest? Well, let's go ahead and write them all in decimal form so they're easier to compare. Matt flew 9.14 meters. Jenna flew, that says, let me erase it, I think it's 9 4/10, so that would be 9.4 meters. Ben's, let me erase that because my underline got in the way. Looks like it's 904 hundredths, which would be 9 holes and 4 hundredths, so it'd be 9.04 meters. And Leah's would be 9.1. meters. Out of all those, they all have 9 holes, so then we look at the hundredths place, and the one with the most hundredths is 9.4, so Jenna's airplane flew the furthest. Okay, on number 4, we're going to compare how much Becky drank each day of the week. So on Monday, she drank 1 41 hundredths liter of water. Tuesday was 1.14 liters. Wednesday was 1.04 liters. And Thursday was 11 tenths liters. And Friday was 1 40 hundredths liters. So now we are going to write each one of these in decimal form. So Monday would be 1.41 liters because it's 41 hundredths. Tuesday would be 1.14 liters. Wednesday is also in decimal form, so it'd be 1.04 liters. Thursday is 11 tenths meters. When you change that back to a mixed number, you get 1 1/10, which would be 1.1 liters. And Friday is 1 40 hundredths, which would be 1.4 or 1.40. I'm sorry, 40. So out of all those days, we want to figure out which day she drank the least. So she drank at least a liter on all those days. So now let's look at the next place over, which is the tenths place. And the one with the least amount of tenths is on Wednesday because she has 0 tenths on Wednesday. So Wednesday would have been the day that she drank the least amount of water. So she drank the least amount on Wednesday. Alright guys, if you have any questions, let me know.